What up, fam? Agent O here, and I've got another action figure review, and I got my brother from another mother, Strident, here with me.
What's up? What's up?
And we're just gonna review the Fall of Cybertron Generations Grimlock figure.
Get ready for this bullshit. Get ready for this bullshit.
It's one of those figures where the bad parts of the figure outweigh all of the good things about this figure. So we're just gonna start off with the pros.
Cool. Yeah. Good sculpt. Good sculpt. The design is nice. I mean, everything in War of Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron seems to be good when it comes to the sculpt. Right?
Yeah, they
or design.
I mean, they definitely get it as close to the concept art as possible, but that's almost where it all ends.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know, like, so many of the different releases kind of defied all the stuff that Hasbro put in motion before, like, you know, your different classes, like your difficulty ratings and whatnot. It just seems like all that shit went out of the window just so that they can make cheap versions of the figures. And I don't mean like the plastic is cheap, it's the process, because you can see it's the same plastic we always got. It's just not.
It feels like they're cutting corners, like, especially with all the Fall of Cybertron, War of Cybertron figures. They all feel like they use a lot less plastic. They all have this really light,
cheap feel.
Yeah, and they have all these open spaces and gaps, and there's parts that don't look. The figures just kind of look unfinished, and you get that with this Grimlock figure. Like, I realize now why they shot all the pictures, the promotional pictures that they shot
from the
of him from the front, because you turn them around and you see all this open spaces. You see where the upper torso of the Tyrannosaurus transformation fits into his back. Oh yeah, sorry. See, we're already all right.
So the positives is the design is hot, and they, for the most part, they actually followed the design. I mean, you can see he's got the shield and sword just like he had in the game. See, this is what happens when we do this.
Yeah. I guess the light piping is actually pretty nice on this figure. Man, I got nothing, man, because I got all complaints.
Yeah, he was frustrated when he was trying to review it, and I was like, let's do it together. We'll make fun out of it. We'll make a whole funny little whatever. I don't know. The thing is, these designs are so good, both robot form and then alternate form, that it's like, you expect the transition to be good, and you expect them not to cut corners when they do one versus the other. With this figure, even though, as you can see, we've got, like, you can pose him pretty well, there's little issues, you know. His shoulders kind of suck. You see how his shoulders are on a tilt, on the, like, inward.
You gotta get to the bench.
Yeah. I figure we're gonna just, since you didn't have any goods, we'll just go to it. His shoulders are on a weird tilt, so you can't really achieve a lot of poses without some, like, finagling and whatnot.
If the legs, the inner thighs look like unfinished, like you can see the ratcheting and where each portion like fits together, it doesn't look like a body. It looks like a machine, and I know they're robots and whatnot,
but it doesn't look like what they look like.
Yeah, it doesn't look. Yeah, it looks like they cut corners there on the legs, and you see that especially like in the back. Like back to the shoulders, they have this.
They're all hollow in there.
Yeah, it's all hollow, and they have this weird swivel system going on. Instead of putting, like, keep the swivel joints connected to the chest, to the torso, and then where the shoulder connects to the torso, put that on a ball joint, so you get more articulation out of it. Like, it feels limited because of the way the swivels are set up.
It's as if they did too much. And you know, another weird thing is that it's how do I put it? All our complaints and the things that we're saying they should do are things that they've already done in the past. So it's not that they're incapable of doing so, it's just that for whatever reason they chose not to do it here. And I know there's going to be a ton of Transformers fans that see this vid and be like, you guys are smoking that shit, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 blah. But we've been collecting Transformers for a long time. We're not as fanatical as some people are, but we're pointing out real issues. I mean, some of you guys collect and just put them up on a shelf and you never really revisit these figures. We go back and we goof off and we play around with our Transformers, and like me and my son play with our Transformers, and I know Phil plays with his Transformers from time to time. So it's just kind of stupid. It's like, how are you gonna leave out these things that take away from the playability of the figure? I mean, Transformers are a puzzle, they're a robot, and then they're whatever vehicle or alt mode it is you get, and they're supposed to be equal fun all across the board. If you kind of skimp on one area on, like, say, the robot mode, it's gonna kind of fall back and screw up one of the other modes, you know what I mean? Like, and this is one of those cases where they did that.
Yeah, this figure as a whole, it feels unfinished, especially when you get it in its robot mode. But I mean, I'll get to that in a little bit.
His accessories.
Yeah, his accessories are, he comes with the sword and the shield. I kind of wish the sword was a little bigger, or like the blade was a little longer, because even when you saw him in the trailer, when they first revealed that the Dinobots were going to be in the game, you could see that, like, he was dragging his sword. It was fucking ginormous. So it would make, like, Guts from Berserk proud that, to see a sword like that. Mm-hmm. And you kind of don't get that with this figure. You also, the shield is too small compared to how it was in the game. I mean, the shield was covering, like, his entire fucking front of his body. And you kind of get this rinky-dink, little, I don't know. It's
a buckler.
Yeah.
He's got a buckler. Yep. They just skimped way too much. I mean, like, it's weird in certain areas how, like, we were pointing out how they make the figure look really close to what the concept art looks like, but then they finagle the freaking the proportions of weapons and body parts and stuff. But then you turn around and you're asked to pay more for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes no sense. This was what, a Voyager class figure?
Yeah, and it was $22 at the store.
And it's like, come on, guys! Like, why couldn't we get a Voyager class War for Cybertron or Fall of Cybertron Optimus? You know what I mean? Because they wouldn't have skimped if it was Optimus.
Yeah, no, preferably from the first game, from Fall of Cybertron, because the design in War for Cybertron is kind of weak.
Yeah.
And frankly, I haven't been really satisfied with any of the figures from either line, except for maybe the
Optimus.
Bumblebee and that Optimus.
Yeah, that first Optimus was raw.
Yeah, everything else feels cheap and they skimped, and it feels simpler compared to how some of the previous generation lines, how they were constructed in terms of, like, their transformation schemes and whatnot. But we'll get to that also later.
But the sword is kind of nice. It's got that cool transparency going on with the blade. I'm pretty sure you shine the right kind of light on it, it would give you, like, that lightsaber-ish kind of feel. And, it fits. That's what he had, in the game. So you can't really complain. We can't complain about that.
It does fit in his hand a little loose.
Yeah.
That was, like, one small gripe I had with the sword.
I mean, how are you going to make him fight?
Yeah.
If he can't hold his damn weapon. I always hated that shit.
Yeah, but other than that, other than that and the size, I didn't really have any other problems with it.
And it is a pretty mean-ass looking sword. I'll give him that. And considering the rest of the figures are so small, the sword will appear bigger, in proportion to those smaller figures, because, Grimlock is that much bigger than they are. But these are all little tricks that they did to try and achieve something that they could have outright just done in the first place. And that's why we have a gripe. It's because we've gotten it before. I mean, like, Springer's out of scale with all the rest of the Season 2 G1 characters. Why is it that, you couldn't apply that kind of scale to him and that attention to detail to him, and then make Springer the regular size?
And they can't even use the excuse of size as the reason why, the fact that he's a triple changer, an excuse as to why he's larger, because I think the first wave of the Generations figures, they had Astro Train, and he was a deluxe size figure, and he's a triple changer. So
exactly.
I didn't understand why they made him a Voyager figure either, other than maybe for the fact that they wanted to get that money out of your pocket.
It's the money. Extra. Yeah, it's the money. It's definitely the money. There's I don't know. There's not too much else to say about the sword. There's a lot of you took a lot of pictures of the sword. Him with the sword.
I didn't plan on using all of them.
Well, I'll cut some of them out, but like I don't know. The sword is not that big of a deal. But now we're moving on to the points where we really have problems. It's his alt mode. Yeah. Good God, the alt mode. So,
the alt mode, it sucks. It looks like this is where like they really didn't try to finish the figure. It's really, really simplistic. Like it's like they have it ranked as like a number 2 on the difficulty scale, but in reality it really should be like a number 1. The legs just fold up and they form the tail, and you just fold out the upper half of the Tyrannosaurus and you're practically done.
Yeah. And his head doesn't look like anything. And just looking at him, there's a big flaw. We're not going to talk about that yet. We're gonna move around and then get back to that part. But he looks like an anorexic Metal Gear Rex.
Yeah, the head, from the front profile of that head, I can't even tell it's supposed to be a Tyrannosaurus if you were just looking at the head.
Yeah, from 3/4 it looks good. From the side, the perfect full profile, it looks good. It's just from the front, it suffers a lot. This is where you can see that they didn't try really hard to engineer the figure past, the basics. They wanted you to get a basic feel for Grimlock, and then that's it. And that's where they failed. I mean,
the pictures that they took to advertise this figure were very, very misleading because they made sure to take the pictures from like the best angles. Because honestly, if I had seen some of these other angles, I would not have picked up this figure. Not even gonna front. And Grimlock is he's my other favorite character next to Jazz, and I'm just super disappointed that they did what they did with this figure.
Yeah, he has that whole Dragon Zord vibe.
Dragon Zord. I don't mind that because that's what they tried to do in the game.
Yeah, no, I know.
I kind of wish they had went with a more anatomically correct Tyrannosaurus instead of trying to stay completely true to the G1 design. Because if you notice, like none of the other Dinobots look like that. Like their legs are the correct I guess proportion they're the correct I don't know how to put it, like they have haunches and stuff like where they're supposed to, like the dinosaurs actually did.
Yeah.
Whereas Grimlock kind of still has that flat-footed
I know what you mean.
Generation 1 look. Like if you look at the first generation's Grimlock, his legs have that haunch look that you see animals actually have.
Yeah,
and it's more true to how the Tyrannosaurus actually looked.
Yeah. And that figure's not perfect.
Yeah, it's not by any means.
It did get that much right.
Yeah, I mean they got the transformation, mode. They got the alt mode correct with the first generation's Grimlock figure. He looks like a complete Tyrannosaurus. He looks finished. You can kind of see from this picture how unfinished the underside of the Fall of Cybertron Grimlock looks. There's just all this open space. Like this is the first time I think I've ever had to complain about a Transformer not having under kibble. The kibble underneath. Like this. Like I would actually be happy if this had some kibble underneath, but because it's starving. Grimlock is starving.
I know,
man.
His ribs is touching, man. That's not even right.
And it's to eat.
Yeah, and it's weird too. Like you see the difference in size. It's weird how in the alt mode they're kind of close in size, but then robot mode there's like no comparison at all.
He's definitely the larger of the two.
And then you look at all the little, I don't know, like you said, the legs on the Generations one are kind of funky, but still.
Yeah, and the robot mode of the Generations Grimlock that's the weakest part of that figure. But
go ahead, you can finish.
But I totally lost my train of thought. Sorry.
See how angry you've made him, Hasbro, making him lose his train of thought.
Do these figures right. Stop making these figures to cater to kids.
Only
when
kids.
You know that you have grown-up collectors who want the more complex transformation schemes, and they want the more closer to the more accurate renditions of these characters.
Yeah.
I mean, it only serves to put more money in your pockets if you go down that route.
I mean, look at this shit. That's just that's unforgivable. And I guarantee that, like, I never looked up any reviews on YouTube besides like what we're doing now. I didn't look at it. I didn't even look. For a while, I actually didn't realize this figure was out we saw it one day while we were looking for other shit, and I was like, dude, pick that shit up because you're the Transformers.
Yeah, and we haven't seen it since.
Yeah, never seen it again. So it was like, oh shit, you get excited, and you get home, and then you try to play with it, and this is what you get. That's not fun. And I've seen people in the comments bitch about the fact that we point out what's wrong with the figure, but like, you can't tell me that every time you pick up a figure, it meets all your expectations. You know, there's so many times where you get a figure, and it's a cool figure, but there's this one thing missing that if they did it, it would be awesome. Shit,
Yeah.
That's why I started doing those the custom capes on all my Batman figures, because those big ass hard plastic capes just make it. I mean, I don't want to get stabbed by his cape while I'm trying to pose him or something. Or you get him in a cool pose, but the cape won't give, so he can't do what he's doing. Like, that shit sucks. And I shouldn't have to pay money for the figure and then turn around and pay more money for the materials to fix the mistakes that the company is paid to do in the first place. They got a whole team of engineers to keep this from happening, and it's still happening, and people are still like, take my money. Fuck that shit. They should be getting it right the first time. Like, this is what the underside should look like. Should be filled in.
He looks full. He looks like a finished toy.
It doesn't look like somebody robbed the package before you got the toy. You know, because that's like they took all the important shit. And I mean, that just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. In the game, you clearly see that his undercarriage is filled in. I want the character to have the filled in undercarriage. So, I mean, that would be a deal breaker for me. I mean, if there were two, I would have been complaining about this with you.
My other gripe is that they didn't really give any articulation to his forearms, aside from, you know, where the shoulders connect to the torso. If they had added
in this
mode? Yeah, in this mode. If they had added like an elbow joint, at least just one elbow joint, that's all. I would have been happy with just that. Like, they couldn't even give us that. They were just so, I don't know, lazy.
Yeah. It's the name of the game these days.
I mean, you can see like all the inner workings of the figure, and you're not really supposed to see that when in its alt mode.
Yeah.
You know, or in its robot mode. You're not supposed to see how the figure was put together. It's like they just forgot to finish the figure, man.
They didn't want to because they knew they wouldn't have to. They just knew that people were going to buy it. And then, you know, another thing is that, like, usually that would be a room for them to gimmick in the weapons or something.
Yeah.
Speaking of gimmicks, he lights up.
Yeah, that's just the light piping right there in that picture. But you can see, like, right behind his head where the neck and the head connect, there's that switch that you have to hold down in order to get the jaw action and the light up action. The light up action is actually cool. I just wish that instead of it being a trigger that you have to hold down, that it was a switch that you flip and then it's on, and then maybe you could have the little trigger or button to, you know, to get the jaw to open and shut. That would have made this little, you know, added bonus for the figure that much better, because it's not terrible. It's just not. They just didn't do it right, especially when you have figures like the Masterpiece Optimus, the first Masterpiece Optimus, where it was a switch that you used to turn on the light, and his chest would glow, and it would make the matrix of leadership glow, and then you had a button on the top of his head that you press to move his faceplate. It worked, so why not just rinse and repeat with these figures when you want to do stuff like that?
That would help you save money.
But
I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say on this figure. I mean, unless you have anything else you want to add.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like for all the good points, which is the robot mode, everything else falls apart. As soon as you examine the figure after that, it all goes downhill from there. Shit, I would even put, and I kind of hated these figures. Remember the alternators?
Yeah.
I hated those figures because they were so, like, complicated and pieces would fall off and shit, but I'd even take the alternator version of Grimlock over this.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's just...
I have that figure, yeah, and I definitely would. As hard as he was to transform, I would definitely take him over this figure.
Oh, yeah.
Was the Autobot insignia on his chest. I dug how, since his alt mode is an animal instead of a vehicle, they actually changed the insignia to look more animalistic and beastly, and I thought that was actually a really nice touch. And I forgot to also mention that when you flip that switch to turn on the lights, it also lights up his chest and torso.
But not his light piping in his face.
Yeah, but not the light piping in the face, exactly.
Which is another missed opportunity.
Yeah, you could have easily had the light, shine up through his head in some way, shape, or form. But I think that's pretty much gonna do it.
Yeah, if you like Grimlock, and you're a fan of Grimlock, you have to have every Grimlock. Then you'll probably need this figure. If not, then you should avoid this figure.
Yeah. If I knew then what I know now, I would have definitely passed on this figure. So that's gonna pretty much do it. I'm Agent O.
I'm Strident.
And we're out.
Peace outside.
Peace.